believe EG already went through game 1 against VP on stream 3. So we've got that already going for you guys. We'll take a look at that schedule coming up. But on here on the main stream, one more match left. It is, again, going to be Empire going up against eHome. In terms of matchup, is this a significant upgrade, downgrade, or just similarity for Empire?
I think it's a downgrade. eHome came in, first of all, they played through the qualifiers, so they were not a direct invite. They did win the qualifiers fairly convincingly in China, though, but how stacked was that qualifier, really?
I mean, playing for CDEC, I think, is...
They were playing against CDEC, which they beat, so that's a good start. But the other teams in that qualifier just didn't seem as powerful as other teams here, so... I personally expect a 2-0 for Empire. I think if they play like they did in these 2 games, they draft the same way, that could be enough. But if they want a dominating win, they need to step up a little bit on like the small things that add up. Like Ben said, maybe they're not active enough. They just need to get that extra gank in instead of farming that little bit of extra time in the game, and a little more crisp spell execution, and then I think they're good to go.
All right. We'll have a little bit more time to talk about that matchup, of course, during the draft and whatnot. But quick update also on stream 2. We did have CDEC going up against MVP Hot 6. Looks like we have the final moments of that match wrapping up. So we'll take a look at that before we return to the mainstream matches.
It's showing no signs of ending anytime soon.
Another Ember Spirit?
Looks like it.
I think Ember Spirit only won 1 game from our stream. Maybe
yeah, including yesterday, right?
Yeah, I think it's only 1 or 2 games that we actually won.
LGD won against Cloud9, and is that it?
Yeah, I think there was another one yesterday too, so maybe 2 overall. But
yeah.
Wow, so many Guardian Angels. Everyone is physically immune. They still keep trying to hit each other.
Yeah, we've got the Omni, of course, on the side of MVP, and then the Rubik on the side of CDEC.
Use their spells at this point, because every time they do, something gets stolen. Oh, food and restoration. Yeah, I'll take that. Let's keep the team alive, healthy, and continuing to fight aggressive mode.
Yeah, we've seen Omni Knight picked a couple of times. Shadow Demon sometimes picked the deal with him, but I think Rubik is going to rise in stock as a support, especially as we see Dazzle banned out more and more.
I feel like this gyrocopter is the key pick for CDEC. Aggressive gyro has carried, I think, 3-4 games in a row for them now.
Yeah.
Supposedly, enemy teams are banning. I guess they ban out the Leshrac against them, and I think the secondary one is maybe Tusk. And
okay.
Either you deal with his gyro, or you definitely make sure you can fight him in the mid-late game, because he's just getting out of control every time.
Yeah, that is something we've seen as a common theme for CDEC. Well, so far, though, CDEC definitely doing well after the wildcard play-ins. Looks like they're having a pretty strong showing on day 1, so that's something to keep an eye out for. Now, as a quick teaser while our teams get ready here for the last match of the day, of course, this is a long tournament. We're going to have more matches coming up tomorrow. We kick it off pretty strong tomorrow, too. On our mainstream, I know everyone's really excited to hear this. We kick off with C9, so we're gonna kick it off with some potentially long matches coming out. C9 versus Fnatic will be starting here on the mainstream. On stream 2, we will have IG going up against LGD, and then on stream 3, Navi versus Complexity. So let's talk about the stream 2 and 3 matches a little bit while we wait. I mean, IG versus LGD. What do you guys think? LGD, of course, kind of coming in as big favorites in the overall TI5. They've had a great showing today, 2-0 in match records. Can they carry that on tomorrow?
I think that might actually be one of the most played matchups of all time. IG versus LGD, they've played each other like 4,000 times or something over the history of Dota. Like, it just seems like every major Chinese tournament, these teams have always gone far. So they've probably met in group stages, and then they've always met in the brackets later on,
now,
in like semifinals.
Off of day 1, though, sure, small sample size, but LGD at the very top, IG at the very bottom.
Yeah.
So today, I mean, IG not having a great start to TI5. LGD, meanwhile, is feeling great. Do you think that's going to affect how they go into the matchup on day 2?
I mean, I think LGD just found their form and just found their particular playstyle that suits them this patch. Whereas IG, I still feel like is struggling to have an identity for 6.84.
It should be mentioned, though, that LGD, while they are 2-0-0, it wasn't like they just ran over their opponents. They had 2-hour-long games against Cloud9, right? So
true.
I don't think, like, if you just look at the bracket in isolation, you're like, okay, one team's on top, the other's on the bottom. There's going to be an easy 2-0. I don't think LGD is just going to run them over. I would be very surprised if IG don't put up a good fight. Most likely result, probably 2-0 LGD, but I could see a draw.
Or what about you, Winter? Just having seen them today.
I think most importantly, they're going to have 1 night of rest and talking, going through the games. It's very important. If they are playing the game today, I would say probably LGD are going to run over them. But because of the fact that they have 1 night to discuss things and start fresh, so I think that even though LGD is obviously the clear favorite, but probably I think 7-3 in LGD's favor. I would still think that IG has a decent chance of getting a good result in that matchup.
All right, now the next match, of course, for Stream 3, as we're looking at the group standings here, we do have Complexity with 3 points and Navi with 2 points, so pretty close in standing. I mean, the results, in terms of just match results, are fairly similar. Now, Navi, the big contention point was that they dropped a game against MVP Phoenix, that is, and that looked a little bit rough, while Complexity did get their 3 points just off of that game, and then had a rough matchup against LGD. Where do you think that is? I mean, specifically Complexity and Navi. Navi, of course, I mean, they've got a lot of fans around the world, but at the same time, not many people having high hopes for Navi sometimes.
At the end of the day, you have to be able to win versus the Tier 1 teams. And I think that's the big difference between Complexity and Navi. Like Navi, they beat the T1 EU teams occasionally, whereas Complexity, they just got completely routed by LGD. Like, it was not even close. We were looking at a DK, and we saw him with, like, bracer boots.
Bracer.
And we're like, what time is it in the game?
It was like
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah, and we're like, what happened to this guy?
And then he was 0-10, minute
Yeah.
20.
Right. Yes.
Which is that's a
yeah.
beatdown. That's not even.
Yeah, and sure, dropping a game to MVP Phoenix as Navi, that's a little bit unexpected, but even though they might have like a worse record, I think that they're a stronger team than Complexity and can go deeper into the
They
tournament.
were very much ahead in the early game as well. It was just like a couple of mistakes later. They overextended, and you know what happened in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. We all know how that ended.
But the most important thing was they were playing well at the start, but it was just the mistakes that crept in later on in the game. So that actually ultimately cost them the first game.
Yeah, sounds pretty reasonable. Now for Complexity, as you guys mentioned, all right, sure, maybe they got just absolutely beaten by LGD. What does that mean for Complexity? But at the end of the day, this is TI5, right? This is, as some of the other players we've been watching have been saying, this is where it all matters. No one's going to come in and say, oh, we're a weak team. Like, sure, we'll be content with 16th place. No one comes in with that mindset. So we're going to take a look at the Freeman brothers on Complexity and see how they've been preparing and what TI5 means for them and Complexity.
Kyle and Zach are supremely dedicated. This is all they do, and they are driven to be the best at the game.
They're both ridiculously, wickedly smart. And whether it was trains or dinosaurs or just some imaginary world they played in, it's always been the two of them.
When Kyle first started playing Heroes of New Earth competitively, I was still playing a lot of different games. My brother convinced me to come try out for his team in Han that was going to DreamHack because they needed a new player.
He started gaming with me when he was like 16. He went to his first LAN.
They went on to win everything in that game. And then they were looking to go transition into Dota, where it's the bigger pond and the bigger prize pool. They saw it as a way of like, hey, there's enough money here we can make a living. If we can find 5 people dedicated to doing nothing else but playing this game, we're going to win everything.
Me and Zach would put together a very dedicated team because we were just always the hardest working when we were playing Han, and that's what we wanted to be in Complexity.
I think we went through like 47 players.
So if you play 50 games with us and we don't think that you got what it takes, like we're going to move on. The whole year, everything was just practice for TI. That's how we viewed it.
It's very rare to see somebody as focused as Kyle on a goal. And as a teammate, he drives everybody to feel the same way about the goal as he does.
Whether we finish 16th, 8th, or 3rd, I'm still going to be disappointed. We want to win. You want to win every match, every game. If you polled people, they'd probably put us as like the least likely to win the tournament.
That's pretty much how we like it, because it gives us more motivation to show everyone how wrong they are and show that we're actually a good team and we're going to be contending for TI.
It definitely helps the nerves to know that you can trust everyone on your team to do what they're supposed to.
I'm more nervous than they are. I'm way more nervous than they are.
My dad, I think, has always wanted to be able to cheer for his kids. Like, he loved watching us play sports, and gaming has sort of been the glue that always brought us back together.
I'm very proud of my kids. I'm proud of them that they're willing to sacrifice to follow their dream and understand that if you want something, you have to dedicate yourself to it.
To see them working together to reach a goal that they've set for themselves, I'm really proud of the adults they are, the men they're becoming, and I can't wait to see what they do next.
All year, it was practice for TI. That's how Complexity is coming in. And I want to point out one thing. I mean, they were saying themselves, if we polled, people might put us as the least likely to win TI. Would you rate Complexity at that point? I mean, obviously, we've already seen a couple of games from them, but, I mean, do you think they're maybe underestimating themselves a little bit in terms of how the community views them?
I think least likely to win TI is an exaggeration, but I think most people would definitely put them bottom 8. And then as far as...
Right, I mean...
I'm trying to think about all the teams. I would probably put them on the border to bottom 4.
Okay.
Right now, the way I look at the field. They're probably in
so
contention for top 12.
So slight exaggeration, but putting them in the bottom quarter, let's say, is generally how most people would have expected them to do. So far, the results, not too bad. I mean, of course, starting off against MVP Phoenix, one might argue a little bit of an easier opponent than other teams, but at least they get that good kickstart with those 3 points. So once again, they'll be playing against Na'Vi tomorrow in the first match. It will be on Stream 3, though. So if that's something you want to keep a lookout for, hey, Complexity, how good are you? You say you've been practicing all year for TI. Definitely tomorrow you'll be tuning into Stream 3 when we kick off at 9 a.m. But for now, we do have one last set of matches here, and of course for the main stream, we're just about to kick off the last best of 2. It will be Empire returning to see if they can get some points against eHome. And let's continue the thought down. I mean, we heard a little bit from you, Cinder, earlier. Ben, eHome versus Empire, how do you rate Empire's chances here? Definitely looking a little bit better?
Yes, it's definitely better than versus their prior matchup. It's just I want to see how they adjust. They didn't really adjust terribly well, I would say, from game 1 to game 2, and that really worries me a lot as a person who's rooting for Empire. I've always applauded their amazing chemistry and teamwork, and every time I watch them play, I'm like, man, these guys look like they've been playing together for 5 years, and they have been very stable. And I had higher hopes for them at the last TI, and we thought that this was their TI. This is what's going to happen for them. But I mean, they really need to at least take 1 point in this if they want to advance to the upper bracket of this group.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that we keep mentioning that it's only day 1, but at the same time, if you play 2 matches and you're at 0, we didn't have that happen in Group A, and if that happens in Group B, you know that, all right, you're in a pretty bad spot to get those top 4. That's a good point that you bring up. Winter, what about you? Where do you put eHome? I mean, specifically against Empire, sure, but overall in TI?
I think eHome is a team where I feel middle of the pack. In China, there's after Vichy and LGD, there's IG, and I would say eHome is very close to CDAC, even though they beat them in the qualifiers. But I still feel like CDAC could also outdo eHome in that sense, even though they lost to eHome in the qualifiers. But they are really close together, and at times I feel when they are losing a lot of games, I feel RTK has been doing very poorly in the games that they lost, and he's a player where when we were doing the team characteristics, we put him as he's sometimes feast or famine.
Yeah. I was about to bring that up. As we bring that up to the screen here, feast or famine offlaner. But at the same time, you guys were saying emphasizes favorable mid matchups. So where does the priority really go? I mean, is the offlaner's characteristics just a matter of just how the player is, and still they would prefer to focus on the mid lane matchups?
He's the captain of the team as well, so it definitely affects the whole team if the captain is having a bad game or he's having a good game. So the morale of the team is there because he's leading the team, and if he's probably having a bad early game, sometimes it reflects into the whole team's performance if the captain is not having a good time.
As far as the whole mid matchup goes, it's just CTY's strength. He is an absolutely incredible mechanical lane player. So eHome would be mistaken not to draft to their strengths, which would be give him a mid lane where he can, if untouched, he will win it 1-on-1. That seems like the recipe in more than 90% of their games. They always get CTY a comfortable lane. If not one, I feel like there are 2 types of mid lanes. There's the ones where you have